Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we are talking about a possible leaked image of Tesla's expected upcoming Model 3 update, also known as Project Highland. We've also got some new information on the production rate for Megapack out of Tesla's Megafactory in Lathrop, and we'll take a look at today's PPI report and a couple of other items. So following that PPI report, which we'll talk about in a second, pretty strong day in the markets. The Nasdaq up about 2% on the day, Tesla up almost 3% to $185.90. Just like last month's report, the Producer Price Index, or PPI, came in below expectations. The total index, so the headline number, came in at a 2.7% increase from last year, which was about 30 basis points lower than consensus expectations. So really good to see that. It's also the most significant drop from one month to the next in year-over-year change for the PPI that we have seen in, I don't know how long, at least the last couple of years. Now, obviously, as we head into months that start to compare to significant increases in the PPI last year, it should be pretty expected for these year-over-year numbers to come down pretty quickly. We've talked a lot about that. So perhaps more importantly is looking at the month-over-month changes. That can give us a little bit better of a feel for how things would look going forward if we were to annualize out those month-over-month changes. And for the month of March, headline PPI declined 0.5% from February. That is the biggest month-over-month decline in almost 3 years. The total index, of course, includes food and energy, and those can be a little bit more volatile. So looking at core PPI, the year-over-year increases are shrinking there as well. Core up 3.4% year-over-year. And then again, more importantly, looking at month-over-month, actually saw a 0.1% decline compared to expectations of a 0.3% increase. So this is actually the first time since October of 2020 that the core PPI has declined month-over-month. So overall here seems like pretty good news for inflation. Obviously that can influence interest rate decisions going forward. Although the CME Group FedWatch tool not really showing much of a change today for interest rate expectations for the May meeting. All right, getting into Tesla updates, the one getting the most attention today is an image that was shared on Reddit last night by user FFIARPG with the title of simply Model 3 Refresh. The image is of a vehicle that is about half uncovered by a car cover. It looks a lot like a Model 3, especially on the sides, but different wheels, different front end, different headlights, maybe some changes in the interior, although it's a little bit difficult to make that out with the reflection. But the question that we're then left with this image is if this might be the heavily rumored Project Highland refresh of the Model 3. We've seen a number of photos over the last few months of Tesla testing out Model 3 vehicles with the front end covered up, including these from the Kilowatts on Twitter. Elon had even liked some of those tweets, so alongside the rumors, it seemed pretty clear like Tesla was working on a new design. However, we have not yet seen any where that front is uncovered until possibly this new image. Whenever we get something like this, there's always the possibility that it's not what the original poster says it is. Maybe this is just an aftermarket front body kit. But there is one specific detail in this image that suggests that maybe this is an accurate leak after all. So if we look at a side-by-side of this new image next to those previous photos of Tesla's test mules that had the camouflage in the front, we can try to compare and see if there are any details that might validate this new image. So if we zoom in really closely, and we look at the hardware and the design around the front repeater camera, although it is a little bit difficult to tell, these seem to have the same design, which notably is different than the current design. If we bring that in, we can see that the body lines for the current Model 3's housing for the side repeater camera, that stops short of the door seam. The previous photos of these test mules out driving around, it is a clearly different design where that body line goes into the door past the seam. If we look at the new image on the left, it looks pretty clearly to have that same design as those prototypes out driving around where that body line, again, goes past the door seam. That dramatically reduces the probability in my mind that this is some sort of aftermarket body kit or something like that. So my best guess is that this really is a leak. This really is one of the vehicles that Tesla is testing out for Project Highland. Now, one of the questions around this would be, if this is one of those vehicles, why are there so many bugs on the front of the vehicle? If Tesla is keeping this covered when it's out testing, how's that happening? Could easily be testing this at night where there's less of a risk of someone seeing this, taking photos of it. Tesla could be doing some testing in a remote location where there's less of a risk of that, or some combination of those two. So I don't really view that as anything that should add to the skepticism around this image. If this is a Tesla prototype, which I think seems more likely than not, it is possible that Tesla could have multiple different prototypes that they are considering. So there's no guarantee that this is exactly what a refresh might look like, especially for things like wheels that can be easily changed. But hopefully we're not too far away from seeing it from Tesla. So far, the feedback that I've seen online seems to be pretty positive, so that's a good thing. I think it's just in general a little bit too early to judge. We talk about this whenever we see photos like this, whether it's Cybertruck or any other vehicle. Lens distortion is going to have an impact, and that's pretty clearly affecting this photo as well. So I'm pretty much just going to withhold judgment, especially because we can't even see the full vehicle in this photo. That said, feel free to share what your thoughts are in the comments today if you would like, and we'll see what comes of this. Sometimes things like this can tend to spark up a little bit more information, whether that's confirmation or something else. We'll see if anything else comes out in the coming days. Alright, next up we've got some really interesting information on Megapack production rates for Tesla's Megafactory in Lathrop, California. This is from Bradford Ferguson. I'll put his video link down in the description. But basically, him and a few others took almost a week out of their schedule to sit and watch the factory and see how many Megapacks were leaving over the course of that time. So when they began this endeavor, they counted the number of Megapacks in the factory parking lot. That number was 67 at the beginning. Then, over the next 6 days, watching 24 hours a day, they counted 42 Megapacks leaving the factory. Then, at the end of the period, they did that same count on number of Megapacks in the parking lot, and that count was 83. So you had 42 leave, you had the number of packs in the parking lot increase by 16. So a total of 58 Megapacks may have been produced during that 6-day window. Obviously that depends on if some were stored out of view or inside that were then relocated outside, or if maybe the count was off during that period, they could have missed some that left that they didn't see. But it should be a pretty good approximation for production over that period. So call it 10 Megapacks a day, that's about 38 megawatt hours of Megapacks each day, or over a 90-day quarter, about 3.4 gigawatt hours per quarter. And if you assume each Megapack is selling for about $2 million, again, you're talking $20 million per day, or about $1.8 billion in Megapacks being produced per quarter. So that's starting to drive some pretty serious revenue. That's about $7 billion per year, and this is only about 33% of the final capacity of 40 gigawatt hours per year that Lathrop should scale up to, hopefully, pretty quickly. So really nice to have some insight on that production rate. Obviously, this could have been a faster week or a slower week than normal compared to the average for a quarter. Obviously, a quarter could have a week with some downtime. Maybe there was some downtime within this week, so the production rate per day could even be higher. So even with great data like this, still plenty of unknowns, but exciting to see it ramp, and hopefully we're not too far off from having that same excitement for Tesla's new Megafactory in Shanghai. Speaking of, we do have new China-insured vehicle numbers for the week of April 3rd. I mentioned this yesterday, but that number has now been confirmed. So for the first week of this second quarter, there were 6,973 Teslas insured in China. So it's a huge decline week over week, but that is pretty much what we always see from Tesla in the first week of any new quarter. If we compare this week versus the first week of the last two quarters, this week was significantly higher with both of those at about 2,000 vehicles apiece. So with that context, it's a very solid start to the quarter, but obviously early, just 1 week and a long quarter to go. Going forward, it sounds like we may not be getting these China-insured weekly numbers anymore. CNEV posts saying that the sources for this information have stopped sharing it. Moneyball on Twitter saying something similar. So we'll see on that going forward. We may not have this level of granularity anymore. All right, last couple of things here for Twitter and SpaceX. CNBC today reporting that Twitter has partnered with eToro to let users trade stocks and crypto, which kind of points to the expanded feature set as well as the foray into finance that Elon has alluded to in the past. But from reading the article, it doesn't sound like this is heavily integrated. Kind of sounds like it's just Twitter putting in some links to eToro in some areas. So I think it's more of an advertising thing than anything for eToro towards Twitter. So probably some nice revenue for Twitter on this deal. All right, lastly then on SpaceX, we continue to have some more positive signs towards a possible Starship test flight next week. Eric Berger on Twitter this morning saying that multiple sources saying that SpaceX is likely to receive a launch license from the FAA today. Later on in the day, we heard about road closures set for Monday, April 17th, the 18th and 19th as backup dates, with Eric then noting that that would obviously still require FAA approval, but saying that that may then come tomorrow instead of today. Either way, it is getting very, very close at this point. It looks like we might be set up for an extremely exciting week next week with a possible Starship orbital test flight plus Tesla earnings. So keep a close eye on Starship. And then before we wrap up, just a quick note, I may have another work conflict tomorrow, so there might not be an episode. I think there will be, but wanted to give a heads up just in case. All right, that'll wrap it up for today then. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast, and hopefully see you tomorrow for the Friday, April 14th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.